Welcome to the Women's Football Show here on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. I'm Kerry Pollock, Alison McConnell and Cheryl Smith are here with me. Another exciting weekend in the SWPL. Let's have a look at the results. It was Hibernian 2, Rangers 0, Motherwell 0, Celtic 1, Partick Thistle 1, Spartans 0, Dundee United 0, Montrose 1, Aberdeen 5, Queen's Park 2, Hearts 0, Glasgow City 0. A quick reminder of the league table as it is ever changing. Hibs reclaimed the top spot after a victory over Rangers. They now slip into second place. Glasgow City shared the points with Hearts. Celtic now fourth after a 1-0 win over Motherwell. Alison, I think we're going to have another photo finish on our hands.
Yeah, it certainly looks that way. I think a really intriguing finale lies ahead again. 5 games to go. I think 3 points separating the top 3 teams. So you have Hibs now with a 2-point cushion over Rangers and a 3-point cushion over Glasgow City. I think hugely intriguing across now the final 5 games, and I think there are some pretty fraught games for everyone still to play when you look at what the split involves and the journeys that it makes. I think it will still change hands a couple of times, but certainly I think you don't want to take your eyes off it just now.
Absolutely not, Cheryl. Hibs are very much still in this title race. I know we've said experience will prevail, but they've been a thorn in a lot of the team's sides so far this season.
Yeah, I know, it's interesting because we were stood at Petershill last Tuesday and Glasgow City were top of the table, which is why we were standing there. 24 hours later it changed again after the full card on the Wednesday night to Rangers, and at the weekend it changes again. So it's interesting that, you know, you can't actually predict. I think I've been touting Glasgow City and Rangers for a few weeks now, and I think most people would say that, and I think it will eventually go down to the wire with those two. But Hibs are just reminding everyone that they're actually not going away, and when it seems like they're out of it, they're just popping back in again.
Definitely. Joe Potter said, Alison, after that defeat that the disallowed goal didn't look as if there was anything wrong with it, but it might not have changed the decision ultimately, but they didn't create an awful lot in the game anyway.
Yeah, it was interesting. I think that goal was in the second minute or so of the game. And then, of course, Hibs then scored fairly quickly after it. But I think she was right. I think if you listen to that full interview in the aftermath of the game, she was very clear that she didn't think Rangers deserved anything. I do wonder just about the effects on teams of playing 3 games across a 7-day period, particularly for the likes of teams such as Rangers and Glasgow City, who have all had a number of players away on international duty, and then coming back you get a day's training really with the full squad, and then you're straight into a 3-game week. So I think that was evidenced on Sunday when you saw some of the results coming in. Glasgow City, I thought, looked very lethargic and heavy-legged against Hearts too at the Orioles, particularly in that opening period. So I think you are seeing the effects of playing so many games, particularly at this point in the season too, when you're coming to the end of a fairly long campaign. But that's why I think there are more twists and turns to come. I think it's a fascinating finale. I think Hibs have compounded all manner of expectations so far this season. I think the anticipation from everyone was that they would slowly fall away, and for me on a personal level I did wonder what the effect would be from having lost 5-0 to Rangers in the Sky Sports Cup final last month, and I think you have to reference that in association with yesterday's result, because I think it was quite a courageous performance to go back out and go and really take the game to a Rangers side that you know are capable of inflicting real damage on you. I think it said a lot for the mentality within that Hibs team on Sunday afternoon to go and get that kind of result in the aftermath of being in the end of such an emphatic defeat so recently. So I think it's fascinating to go and look at it and see where the destination of the title will lie. I think most of us would look at the depth Rangers and Glasgow City have and put your money there. However, I just wonder how much too the mental approach now has a bearing. It might come down to just who has the nerve to go and see it over the line.
That would be huge. As Alison mentioned there, Cheryl, Rangers, it's only natural to see a slight drop-off as we go towards the end of the season, but a goal difference of 105, despite them sitting second in the table, it's quite staggering, actually.
Yeah, and I think they'll see that as an extra point. It'll count when they'll probably feel a little bit of confidence, even though they're not sitting top at the moment.
Yeah.
And there's still, obviously, as Alison says, twists and turns to come, and a lot of football still to be played, but they've got that in their locker to almost fall back on if it does come down to that. And they've put a lot of that work in earlier in the season. It's I'm not surprised that they've scored that many goals. They've got a lot of really good players, especially up front.
Rangers don't need to face Hibs until the last day of the season. Will it be wrapped up before then?
I don't think so.
Go to them?
I don't think so. I think it'll go to the wire again. I think there are too many teams too close to one another when you look at the top three. And also, Celtic are sitting in fourth just now and Hearts just behind them. I think you can discount Celtic from the title race now. I think they're probably out of it. But I do think they'll still have a bearing on who goes on to win it. And I think you'd say the same for Hearts and potentially Motherwell too. Motherwell made life really awkward for Celtic on Sunday afternoon. So I definitely think it's probably going to go to the very last game again.
And if it does go to the very last game, there can be no more mid-season holidays either, because we'll need to be all over it.
What
time's your flight tomorrow?
That's neither here nor there. You and I were at Petershill last week. Alison had a holiday as well. Moving on to Glasgow City then, they're still chipping away, as you mentioned, Alison, 3 points behind the top spot. Celtic in a battle for fourth, as you correctly said a few weeks ago. Is that unacceptable for a team of Celtic stature?
I certainly think that for those within a Celtic team who made history last season by winning the league, by taking the team into the Champions League group stages for the first time in their history, I think it will feel unacceptable. I think Celtic, you would expect to be challenging for the title. You would expect them to be up there. I think they have underachieved hugely this season. I think when you look at the opening half of the campaign, you might say, well, it was inevitable there would be a domestic fall-off given the fact that they were competing against Europe's elite in the Champions League, maybe without the depth required to cope with that when you were looking at the volume of games and how quickly games were coming hard on the heels of one another. I think you could see that it took its toll. However, when they came back after the break, they quickly made up that ground. I think they were 6 points behind in the league. They made up that ground with the 2 games in hand that they had, but there has been a considerable drop-off in standard this term, I think. I think they'll be frustrated not to be within the mix for going for the title. I think that was the expectation. Yeah. I think that's always the expectation amongst top clubs, is to be going and challenging for silverware. And it's not just the fact that they're entirely out of the league race. There's 5 games to go, they're 8 points behind, but also that they went out of both cups at very early stages too. This is a team that has designs on laying down a marker in the women's game to be a dominant force, to be competing for silverware every season. I think it will feel like a very, very disappointing campaign, and it'll be interesting to see just what happens now in the summer.
Are there question marks over Elena Sadiku's position at the club for you as manager just now?
I think she probably has enough credit in the bank. I think if you deliver the club's first title, you take them to the Champions League. She was nominated for a FIFA Best award just back in December. She claimed the Manager of the Year award. I think there is sufficient credit there at the minute. However, I think it's inevitable that questions will always be asked if you fail to go and not only even just win a title, but fall out of the title race so alarmingly. I think Elena had said it herself last weekend that she felt as though the 2 games that Celtic had on Wednesday night and on Sunday, it had to be 6 points out of 6 in the aftermath of that draw against Rangers last Sunday afternoon. And it was, the very, very poor performances from both of them. I think Hibs were probably the better team on Wednesday night. It was nothing each. If you look back at that game, I think Hibs will probably feel the more aggrieved not to have taken something from that game, because I think they created the better chances. And I think Motherwell made it very awkward for Celtic. Maria McInerney coming up with a fantastic goal just to give them the 3 points, but they were scraping by Motherwell, a team that you've seen Glasgow City and Rangers and Hibs beat quite comfortably. So I think it's inevitable that questions are asked. However, I think just now she probably has enough credit in the bank.
The players all know as well, Cheryl, that that's not where they should be in the table. That's just not good enough.
Yeah, they will, and I think they've heard it all season from the fans, and Elena's referenced that in different press conferences, the criticism that they've had, but that's just what's going to happen when they're at Celtic and they're defending the title. And listen, none of the 3 of us have ever been in a dressing room, but I can imagine just from what you see on the pitch, that doesn't look like a set of players to me that is going to bat for her in difficult times. They've had so many poor results. They've stopped the rot at the weekend with the win over Motherwell, although, again, as Alison said, it wasn't great because other teams are putting 3, 4, 5 past Motherwell, but they have stopped the rot there. But I think the players also have a lot to answer for. You know, it's difficult for them. I have sympathy for them, and they've had a difficult season with the Champions League and different pressures that they haven't experienced before. And you know, I think in terms of the Champions League stuff, I think they're still feeling the after effects of that, because it's not just turning up for the game. There's just so many different elements to it that they're not used to, like all the sort of travelling, the media, all the attention around it. And some of the players are still part-time as well, so I have sympathy for them there, but I don't think they've covered themselves in glory themselves, so it's not all down to the manager.
I think what's really notable this season is that this is a Celtic team who haven't really won a big game. Yeah. They've not really claimed produced a big performance and a big result against a team that's on their level, a team that you would say are their rivals and challengers for silver, where you would have to go a way back probably to, I think it's the second game of the season. They beat Glasgow City 1-0 at Airdrie before they had changed grounds, before they moved to Hamilton. I think that's the only real game of note that you can say that this is a Celtic team that won this term.
But they've not played like a full 90 minutes well, and they also don't have enough players to come up with big moments. Maria McInerney obviously scored a great goal. That's just one glimmer. They don't have the Caitlin Hayes anymore, so I can see why they're getting those results. They're not able to come out and top against those bigger teams.
I think there's something really interesting too in the fact that you had a player last season in Amy Gallacher who was scoring goals for fun in excess of 40 goals last season. Player of the Year, scored, of course, the arguably most important goal in this women's team's history to go and win the league. And I don't think you've seen the best of her this season. I think there's a real question to be asked why. Yeah. Like, what has happened within this setup that you have a player who was in full bloom and you're really not building on that and you're not taking it forward again.
You said, Cheryl, they're still feeling the effects of the Champions League. At this point in the season, it's just to be devil's advocate, is that still a valid excuse to be using that excuse?
It's not an excuse. I'm saying that. They're not saying that. I'm saying it, but it's not an excuse. But I think it will have an effect because they're trying to defend a title. They're in the Champions League for the first time. I know it was months ago now that they were knocked out of it, but I think because they were in it, they were then playing catch up, and then they really struggled to get those points back. Well, as everyone else was playing and got ahead of them, so it's not an excuse, but I think it's had it's taken a toll on their season, definitely.
To be fair though, they made up those points quite quickly because they had 2 midweek games after the winter break, and they won both games and they went level on points again. I think at that point it was Glasgow City or Hibs, but they went level on points again. But I think the real problem has been no consistency whatsoever. And then they went into that Rangers game, they got a draw last weekend, but that was on the back of 3 successive defeats. Yeah. And it's killed them. It's absolutely killed them.
Is there extra pressure now, Alison, that Hearts are now breathing down their neck?
Absolutely, I think so. I think it would be embarrassing for Celtic to finish 5th. I do, and I think absolutely that Hearts are a viable challenger to go and finish 4th.
Yeah, well, it is semi-final weekend this weekend, and Glasgow City face off against Motherwell. Rangers take on Aberdeen. Cheryl, how do you think these two will play out?
I think we'll be looking at a Glasgow City Rangers final. Yeah. At the end of those, I don't really see any other results coming from those. I think Rangers in particular will probably put a big few good goals past Aberdeen at Hampden, and I would expect Glasgow City to come out on top as well, and that would be a really interesting final towards the end of the season as well, something else for us to look at.
Ali, agreeing with that?
I would agree, yeah. I think Motherwell try and make life really difficult for Glasgow City, but it's a big, open, expansive pitch. I think Glasgow City have the experience and just know what they'll have to do. I think I would absolutely expect them to go and book their place in the final, and the same for Rangers against Aberdeen. I think you would fancy their chances, and I think it would be a mouth-watering final. I think if you have Glasgow City and Rangers in the final at Hampden, I think it's a real showpiece finale to the season.
Absolutely cannot wait to see who gets to that all-important final, but it is that time of year where PFA Scotland, the Team of the Year, has been announced. Let's just have a rundown of those names now. Erin Clackers, Emma Lawton, Samantha Van Diemen, Leah Eady, Erin Husband, Kirsty McLean, Ailey Shore, Ailey Gambone, Ailey Adams, Katie Wilkinson and Brenna Lavera. Alison, a pretty strong selection there.
Yeah, and I think there's a good case to be made. I think Emma Lawton has had a fantastic season in what's maybe been a forgettable Celtic season. I think Emma Lawton has been one of the success stories
Yes,
there.
the only one yet.
And I think a bit of representation from Hibs too, in terms of those who have made a contribution to what's been a fascinating league campaign to date. But yeah, I think a fairly predictable team of the year, I think.
A few names stick out to you there, Cheryl, as well?
I think the Emma Lawton one's interesting because at Elena's press conference before the game at the weekend, she'd pointed out that in the Celtic Player of the Year, the 4 players that were nominated were players that are new and that she had signed. And those are the players that are doing really well this season. I just think it was a little nod to the fact that if she does get backing and she gets the players in that she wants, she can obviously pick out a player, because Emma Lawton has been excellent this season and also has got into the Scotland squad as well. So.
Absolutely. Well, in the next few weeks we will find out the nominees for Young Player of the Year, and of course Manager of the Year in the SWPL as well. But on behalf of myself, Alison and Cheryl, thanks for listening and thanks for watching.